You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or a contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for April 21st, 2023. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we fully support trans rights, but not crap beer. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
That's right. And on that topic, the self-own of the week should have been the guy who destroyed Bud Light in a Walmart.
Yes.
Dustin Kane, 44 years old. He wasn't a kid. Seen in a viral video smashing up cases of Busch Light.
Wrong one.
Not Bud Light.
Wrong beer.
They're both owned by Anheuser-Busch, but...
So is everything, so...
He just wanted to smash up beer cans in a Walmart, a Kansas Walmart. But in the meantime, apparently either his joggers fell down or something happened and he was charged with exposing himself.
Look, Republicans, it's real simple. Exposing yourself and smashing up beer are two separate things. You do one of those in a Walmart. The other one, I don't know, wherever you usually do it, on a school ground or in church.
The Tennessee State House.
Yeah. Wherever you drop trow and embarrass yourself, which is literally everywhere these days. Not at the same time.
But that's not the self-own of the week. But no. Self-own of the week goes to country music, and I use the term, with a caveat here. Country music star, because I've never heard of him before, Brantley Gilbert. Brantley Gilbert destroyed a Bud Light can on stage. Brantley made the onstage statement against Bud Light, violently throwing a can of beer to the floor, as fan-captured footage found on TikTok shows. Per the website Taste of Country, it happened during Gilbert's band's cover version of Queen's Another One Bites the Dust, a 1980 hit led by a famously flamboyant bisexual performer and LGBTQ plus icon, the late Freddie Mercury, who is laughing his ass off in gay heaven. Thank you, Brantley Gilbert.
It does strike me that these chuckleheads don't really kind of read the manual when it comes to music selection. Like Born in the USA, Blue Gal, is a patriotic American song that's all about the greatness of America all the way through. That's what we played at all the rallies. Born in the USA, yada, yada, yada. Born in the USA. It's just right there in the lyrics. You know it. No. And I'm sorry, Another One Bites the Dust is an arena song. It's an anthem. It's great. It's very catchy.
Yeah,
but
a lot of Queen songs. It's one to be sung to a huge crowd to rally them, to get them excited, get the audience excited, etc.
I do worry they're not as smart as they think they are, Blue Gal.
They're not as smart as they think they are, Driftglass.
The best beer throwing scene ever is in the Blues Brothers. And if you can't get on stage behind chicken wire and have hillbillies throw long neck beer bottles at you because you can't remember the words to the old 97, then don't even try. Or the wreck of the old 90. Don't even try. Don't even try. No, because you'll fail.
We want to thank 2 podcast listeners that we broke bread with this week.
We had a perfectly lovely dinner out with friend of the pod, Alan, this week, while Illinois power brokers swirled around us.
Yes, we went to a certain restaurant that is known to be a haven for lobbyists.
A hotbed. And everybody was here this weekend. All the
lobbyists were in town.
Brandon Johnson, mayor-elect of Chicago, was down here this weekend. While looking for parking, I spotted a lot of vanity plates. I spotted the Illinois One plate, which is usually owned by a governor or a high political official.
Yeah.
And we had breakfast last weekend with our friend Steve from north of us, which is always a pleasure. And we look forward to Steve's tomatoes this summer. Hint, hint, hint.
We do. Yeah. He's going to break the record that he had last year of giving away hundreds of tomatoes. Yes. I think he said he had 6 plants last year, and he's going to do 8 this year.
The math on that is wild for me. I have 6 plants. It'll grow 1,000 tomatoes.
He just grows hundreds of tomatoes from just a few plants.
And they're so damn good.
Taking care of them. That's what you do. Well, we appreciate both of you. And anytime any of you are in town, feel free to email us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah,
let us know you're going to be in town and you want to have coffee or a meal or a lunch or a beer or whatever. No Bud Light.
No.
But That's just because there's better beer in Springfield than that. We're going to start, of course, with the Dominion settlement.
Yeah.
Driftglass and I have been talking a lot about this week.
We have.
And I want to talk about what we can outsource to corporations and what we can't outsource to corporations. The Naomi Klein book, No Logo, which was about corporate branding of everything. You know, Kentucky Fried Chicken putting their logo in space. And really the corporate takeover of our public spaces and our public goals. And this goes everywhere, from Disney being so really violent about their trademark of Mickey Mouse to the point where they won't allow a child to do a drawing of Mickey Mouse in certain instances.
Uh-huh.
And then they go after Ron DeSantis and all of a sudden they're the good guys.
Yeah.
And we've talked about Bud Light all day today. KFC and Domino's filling potholes and putting their brand on the potholes. I mean, are we outsourcing road repair to corporations because city governments just can't afford to do it anymore? Is that it?
I mean, that's the plan, right? The plan is you starve government to the point where it cannot provide any services at all, and then make everything you contract it out or make it private. That's the libertarian dream.
And make it profitable to Wall Street and So we're seeing that. The point is we're seeing that with Dominion. We're seeing that Dominion behaved not like a tool of democracy, but like a corporation. And they settled for a huge amount of money. I'm not going to say that's pocket change to Fox because, let's face it, they let go of Dan Bongino today.
I know. We can't afford any more Bonginos. And by the way, we're going to have to start charging for soda. You know, I'm sorry. No more free soda in the break area. And Bongino's got to go.
And Bongino's got to go. So Charlie Pierce said this best. Your pal, Charlie Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
This is a quote. When it comes right down to it, it's not Dominion's job to make whole our commitment to our republic. That's our fucking job. And we've shirked it long enough. And Claire McCaskill pointed out, and I don't always agree with her on everything, but she pointed out, this is going to be decided in the next election, and the next election, and the election after that, and the election after that. That elections are where we have to make our stand, and we really have to protect the right to vote and fight for it. This is when we get into Winston Churchill, which you brought up with me in a conversation. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
I did, and I just mentioned that, you know, when he took over for Neville Chamberlain, first of all, they had the good sense of putting in charge the person who'd been right all along about the Nazis and getting rid of the guy who'd been wrong all along. And, you know, Neville Chamberlain didn't live much longer past that, but Churchill didn't throw him on an island. He didn't exile him. He used him. There are uses for people who were wrong all the time, but you shouldn't put them in charge of things. That's not the right way to do it. But Churchill didn't come on and say, you know what, I'm not going to promise. This will be a quick war. You know, the Bill Kristol, like Iraq, it'll be over by Christmas. It's a 2-month war, 3-month war.
We'll be greeted as liberators.
Absolutely. It'll be great, and it'll pay for itself. It'll be cheap and easy. We'll be home by Christmas. That is not what Churchill told them. He told them, I have nothing to offer but blood, sweat, sorrow, and tears, I believe is the exact quote. And that we're going to fight them everywhere. We're going to fight them on the beaches. We'll fight them on the landing fields. And if they do invade our island, our colonies will keep fighting. And we're going to keep fighting and keep fighting. But he didn't promise them a quick, easy, decisive war. He told them this is going to be long and it's going to be ugly and people are going to die. But in the end, whenever the end comes, we will prevail.
Yeah.
That is something that we on the left, because I'm my cause this week is the promiscuous use of we when we mean Republicans.
Yeah.
Or we mean people who actually do legislation. You know, I love Brother Charlie Pierce, and I want to meet him at the Chicago thingy, you know, when the Democrats come to town. But yes, that's our fucking job, and we've shirked it long enough. Yes, there are a number of people who have been shirking their civic duties, but most of the people I know haven't. And it gets kind of boring to hear how we have failed and we have done wrong and how we have done a terrible job and how we are lazy when it ain't we that's the problem. It's those people over there that are the problem. But be that as it may, we as liberals and Democrats, et cetera, whoever we are, have to wrap our head around the fact that this is a war. It's a long, ugly, brutal struggle against people who already have a huge advantage in logistics. They own the fucking media. They have more money than God. They have a highly trained cadre of 70 million reprogrammable zombies at their command. They've got a whole infrastructure of feeding. Just look at Harlan Crow. Look at all the
Yep.
I cannot name all the think tanks and white paper places and special project organizations. Everything from the American Enterprise Institute to the Federalist Society and everything in between gets all the money they want to do all the mischief they like, and that's been going on for 20 years, for 15, 20, 30 years. And so to undo all that is going to be a long and very, very ugly struggle, because they're not going to give up. Fascists don't give up. You know, they don't go, oh, well, I guess we screwed up. I guess we invaded Russia. Let's just back on out of here. Let's moonwalk out of Russia and just say, hey, let's no harm, no foul. We'll go back to keeping Europe in our back pocket. That's not what fascists do. So I'm sorry, but this is going to be a long and very unpleasant fight. And some of us have been in it for a really long time already. And we're kind of tired.
And really punching Nazis and defeating Nazis is still the goal. And it's your eyes on the prize. One of the breaking things that's come out today, I don't know if you've heard about it yet, Drift Glass, is Lauren Windsor is recording on the down low what Republicans are saying, you know, behind the scenes at their conferences. And here's this Republican lawyer, Cleta Mitchell, who I have discovered through my colleague Carolee, is one of those key groundsweller types. She's a pal of Ginny Thomas's and so forth. And she's sitting there talking on this Republican, retreat or whatever it is, strategy session about taking away the vote from college students. And just blatantly saying, we have to remove ballot boxes from college campuses. We've got to do it. And we have the power to do it because a state legislator in North Carolina changed parties. We have a veto-proof majority now in North Carolina. We're going to take away, the first thing we're going to do is take away ballot boxes. That's like top priority. And so these Nazis got to go.
Well, yeah. And when you look back, and when I looked at the Dominion settlement, what I saw was the perfect Republican resolution to every problem, which is, first of all, dig in, never admit you're wrong, ever admit you're wrong until the last possible moment, and then spend whatever it takes to put it behind you, and then move on to the next big lie. And that's just what they did. They dug in.
And make sure you throw in a lot of projection.
Sure.
Because that's both Tucker and New York Post. New York Post is now, look who lied this week. Biden lied. Oh, look at all the lies. And it's like, oh.
Yeah,
you paid $787.5 million to pay for your lies.
Yeah, I mentally, when New York Post comes up or Fox News, I just change the channel in my brain.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the big propaganda outfit that's been around for, since the 90s is lying to the morons who watch it all the time. Breaking news.
Yeah.
Fox lies to its viewers. And here's how they lied in this specific way today. Like, I don't give a shit.
I just called it Rupert Murdoch's shit rag on Twitter this week.
And honestly, and you know that you and I do listen to Keith Olbermann in the morning.
Yes, we do.
And we enjoy it very much. And some of his stuff is nourishing and interesting and deep. But the number of times like, arrest Clarence Thomas today. It's like, okay, I get it. You have become Twitter. You are now Twitter. Arrest Donald Trump today. Sue Ginny Thomas today. Like, okay, I get that makes you feel good. But and my question, and I did get into this in the social media universe this week with someone who was like, why can't we just force Dianne Feinstein? Democrats, you pussies. Why aren't you forcing Dianne Feinstein to resign? And I'm like, well, okay, she's not going to resign. So, why can't you just have her removed? Okay. You need Republican support to do that. And have you looked? Well, I'm not a senator. I don't know what all the rules are, but I know that they must happen today. Like, okay. I get it. You would like that to happen. But, if I had a nickel for every time the word should popped up in an Illy Mistal Twitter stream, well, what should happen? I could buy my own Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we all get it. We're all very upset and very impatient and very angry. But what's the fucking plan once arrest J.D. Thomas today doesn't work? What's plan B? And the plan B is, it's going to be a long, hard, ugly, inch at a time struggle for the next generation to get rid of these assholes. And that's the truth you don't want to deal with, because that's not sexy. It's not quick. It's not a magic bullet. You won't solve
it requires real compromise, which is horrible.
Yeah.
You have to fight your ass off to keep John Tester in the Senate.
Yeah. And then you wake up.
I don't want to spend a lot of political capital on. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
But we do not stand on the same platform on issues.
No.
And we've got to fight like hell to hold on to that seat.
Yeah. Well, and you know who's helping out there, Blue Gal?
Who?
Those good people at No Labels. They're just they're so goddamn helpful. Turns out Harlan Crow of Nazi Garden Harlan Crow fame gave No Labels $100,000.
Oh my God.
Which is awesome and should tell you everything you want to know about No Labels. I am heartened by the fact that all of my brand new political allies who used to love shit like this, who created these types of organizations, are now like, who the hell are these No Labels people, and why haven't we done something about it? Arrest No Labels today. Okay, I get you. You're all mad. That's great. How about we start? Just start. Let's just start. Let's all take a breath. All you never Trumpers who are all very upset about this, let's all take a deep cleansing breath and go read Driftglass's post from 2010 telling you that this shit was going to happen. How about we start there and arrest Driftglass today for reminding us of our very inconvenient past? Anyway, you want to talk about RFK Jr., I believe.
Oh, just that his first interview as a presidential candidate challenging Joe Biden is with Tucker.
Yeah. Oh, RFK, you're so smart.
So, hey, he's got that going for him.
Yeah. This whole RFK Jr. and Ann Coulter body swap thing is getting kind of weird. I believe we're living in a science fiction story.
We are living in a science fiction universe.
It's not a happy one either, Blue Gal. It doesn't end well.
And I feel about RFK Jr. the same way I feel about Kanye West. Just, you're mental, and I'm sorry, and I don't agree with you on anything, and I wish you'd get some help. Yeah.
And you're famous enough to be of use to terrible, terrible people.
Terrible people. Yep.
Yeah. And that's what. Oh, I'm sorry. Speaking of No Labels, late breaking news. Old King Cole himself, Joe Manchin, attacked President Biden this week because he's probably going to be the future 2024 No Labels candidate for president, or he wants to be, or he hasn't put it out of his mind yet. He attacked Biden for showing, quote, a deficiency of leadership because on a potential national default, and applauded Speaker McCarthy. Remember Kevin McCarthy? For proposing a plan to raise the debt limit.
Yeah. Is that what Kevin McCarthy did? I don't think so.
That's what Joe Manchin said he did. What more do you need to know?
No.
And but Joe Manchin is one of the votes we need. Now, before you get all angry out there in listener land, and
arrest Joe Manchin now.
Arrest Joe Manchin today. Before you get all mad out there, I have a question. Who do you propose we run in West fucking Virginia as a Democrat to beat Joe Manchin in a state that Trump won by like 1 trillion votes? What's the plan? As opposed to shouting about it and getting angry about it. And Joe Manchin's I agree with all that. Joe Manchin's a fucker. Joe Manchin could leave the planet tomorrow. I'd be delighted. Joe Manchin is made of coal. He is a source of all evil. He's also a vote in the Democratic Senate for some of the things I agree with. So what's the plan B if you're not happy with Joe Manchin? Is it, I don't know, creating a 51st state? That's not going to happen. Is it, I don't know, expanding the Supreme Court? That's not going to happen. So
I'm not so sure about either one of those things. I think you could get, once you get 60 votes in the Senate, and believe me, it may or may not happen in our lifetimes, but it is going to happen.
Now you and I are right on the same page, and I don't mean just the pages I'm holding in front of me. I mean literally, intellectually the same page, which is yes. Once you get enough votes to do these things, we should do them, but we're not going to get them by 2024 or 2026 or 2028.
And if you don't mind me interrupting, Dirk Glass, we aren't going to get them until we have serious election reform that stops some of this voter suppression that Republicans are clearly in love with.
And how do we get election reform?
We elect House members and senators who will pass legislation that, and all the way down the line. We have to elect people locally as well, who respect democracy. Who, secretaries of state are very important, we've discovered.
Yes, they are.
In protecting democracy. So, yeah, these are things that have to happen. And I think what is being done to out some of these people who privately are saying to each other really fascist shit when they think no one is listening, that they won't say in public. I think that's important.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Even if you're not speaking to everybody, even if a lot of people aren't paying attention to it.
It's hard to know. It's hard to quantify how important it is that the two Justins got global fame overnight because Republicans in Tennessee who would like to bring back lynching dropped their pants like they were in a Walmart destroying beer and showed their asses to the world. I mean, that is important. It is hard to numerically quantify how that changes the electoral vote, et cetera, et cetera. But you're right. Those things are really important, and we should focus on those things, and we should celebrate those things when they happen.
Well,
Absolutely.
And I can't tell you the number of times that youngest child has told me, I talked to my friends and they couldn't believe that something happened that I told them happened.
Yes.
And they got really mad about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for them.
And so when you out some of these things to where it does bubble up, like the Tennessee Three, which was so blatantly racist that everyone noticed. And even people who turn the channel when MSNBC comes on and say, oh, no, I want to watch something else. And they're not day to day in politics like we are. Some things do bubble through like, oh, my God. They kicked out the two black guys, but the white lady they left in. Really?
Yep.
That comes across as, Disney is another one. You're trying to what now? Build a prison next to where I take my kids every summer? What?
Yeah. Well, it might be a lovely ride, It's Naughty Child Island. It's
Prison
Naughty Child
Planet. Yeah, Naughty Child Island.
Yeah. It's a small, labor-intensive lockdown world after all.
You're terrible, Driftglass.
Well,
hey, I was promised a game today.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a game show or something?
Well,
you told me you had a game show planned for me or something.
Yeah, I borrowed an oversized checked jacket from the 70s, and I'm wearing it now. And I'm going to take you to the big board and spin the dial, and you're going to guess something. Okay. No, I have a Declaration of Independence quiz.
I'm an independent.
Because honestly, the number of people I hear who tell me, at least on social media, that they hear your voice in their head every time they hear the word independent.
Yes, and that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate that. I really do.
Independent is a joke. In the independent voter, there is a small, tiny fraction number of people who are actually independent. Everyone else wants to be considered independent because you don't want to be just a member of a party because then you're not an American. You want to be a frontiersman out there putting up barbed wire fence and riding horses and conquering the whatever. But that's not how things really work. Most overwhelming majority of independent voters are not independent. They lean one way or they lean the other. And when given the option of, a third party, everyone likes it until they read the fine print and they discover, oh, it's not my perfect John Galt Libertarian Party, or, oh my God, it's not my Medicare for All party. Then I don't want to be any part of it. Can I have a fourth party or a fifth party or a seventh party? Or maybe we should all have our own political party. So we all know on this podcast that the notion of the independent voter, this revered mythology is Beltway dogma. You got to worship it. So I got 3 separate headlines from 3 separate sources. I'm going to read them to you plus a little sentence. And then afterwards, I'm going to read you a couple of paragraphs. But you got to guess in what order they came, and if you can, which source they're from. So I'm not reading them in any particular order necessarily. And I'll read
but these are mainstream media headlines.
Oh, right? Yeah,
you're not quoting some blog somewhere. This is like
people
I would have heard of. New York Times.
As the proprietor of some blog somewhere, let me just say, I think that's the
I know.
No, that's I'm quoting from real places.
Can I just give you a quick analogy about the independents before we start?
Sure.
Junior dude is in a situation now where he's part of a club and he's one of the officers and treasurer, whatever, where he has to sign checks.
Right.
Not big checks, but just he has to sign checks every once in a while.
Right.
And I've had, as people know, he's autistic and sometimes he has confusion about things. And one of the things he's confused about every once in a while is I help him fill out the check and then I hand it to him to sign and he immediately flips it over and tries to sign the back.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you're the treasurer. You're going to sign it in the front. And that's how I see independence. They want to cash the check without signing it.
Right.
So they'll be happy to endorse the back where nobody's going to look, but they won't sign the front.
Well, you know what independents really want, Blue Gal?
What?
They want to arrest Joe Biden today. And
they voted Republican for every president since Gerald Ford.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not going to bore you with a long story. The short version of the story is the union busting assholes at an insurance company I worked for a million years ago. Their propaganda was insulting to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't that it was wrong. It was in fact factually wrong, but it was insulting. Just this whole reverence for this non-existent thing, like the non-existent both sides trope and the non-existent center and the non-existent independent, when everyone who's talking about this knows they're lying. They know this is just bullshit. But they go ahead and say it anyway because they are very carefully kept away from anyone who will ask them really basic questions about the bullshit they're spreading. Mm-hmm. And God forbid you take a side. Because then what happens is, then you're not a journalist anymore. Then you're just an influencer, whatever. You're a blogger. So anyway, 3 headlines and a little bit from each one, and then you guess when and where. Okay?
All right. Are these all within the past 10 years?
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
Ready?
Yep.
First one, record number of Americans say they're politically independent. We spend our days captivated by people with the most power and the biggest mouths. But it turns out a rising number of Americans want something else, political independence. Okay? That's number 1.
Oh, gosh. Oh, are you going to read all of them or do you want me to guess one at a time?
I'm going to read all of them.
All right.
And then, because I like to hear the sound of my own voice.
Okay,
Number two. Political independence, the future of politics? ? They've been both relentlessly courted and politically sidelined for years. But 2 new books show how voters who reject both Democrats and Republicans can become a force. Number 3. What independents want? Liberals and conservatives each have their own intellectual food chains. They have their own think tanks to provide arguments, politicians and pundits to amplify them, and news media outlets to deliver streams of prejudice-affirming stories. Independents, who are the largest group in the electorate, don't have any of this. They don't have institutional affiliations. They don't look to certain activist lobbies for guidance. There aren't many commentators who come from an independent perspective.
Huh.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I happen to have, you put these in our notes, so I have them in front of me, but you did not put dates or sources. You really are putting me on the spot here. All right.
Yep.
Now, I would say the one with the 2 new books, second one, Political Independence, The Future of Politics. That's a book review. 2 new books show how voters who reject both Democrats. Okay. I'm going to say that is The Atlantic.
Okay. From when?
2000. It could be any time. All these could be any time. That's the point.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say 2012.
Good guess.
All right. The first one, record number of Americans say they're there, and there's there, THEY', which is not in the New York Times style book.
Are you
so
sure?
It's not New York Times. I'm going to say that's Politico.
Okay.
All right. We spend our days captivated by people. That sounds like Politico to me. Okay.
From when?
And from 2023. I'll say it's from today. All right. Mm-hmm. What independents want? Liberals and conservatives each have their own intellectual food chains. Huh. Well, that could be Axios or Politico or The Atlantic. Well, it could be The Atlantic. It could be.
All right.
What?
Shall we go?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. I'll say Axios and I'll say 2004. Wait a minute. What independents want could also be David Brooks.
It could be.
That could totally be David Brooks.
And it is.
Oh!
Very good, Blue Gal. Damn, I married the right woman. Okay. The first one, record number of Americans say they're politically independent, is from Axios.
Oh, that's Axios. Okay.
Literally 3 days ago.
Oh, my God.
Political Independence, the Future of Politics, John Avlon, September 2012.
On TV, on CNN?
No, on, I think it's the Daily Beast.
Okay. All right. Yeah. John Avlon writing
John
that.
Avlon.
Okay.
And that's the one I'm going to read a little bit more of in just a second. The third is from David fucking Brooks.
Oh, my gosh.
From the New York Times from 2009, from 14 years ago. They're all the same fucking article. And they're talking about the same completely imaginary group of people. And all these people still have jobs. Really
Arrest
important jobs.
lazy journalists today.
Yeah. Now, I wrote a whole thing commenting on the David Brooks thing back in 2009 or 10. I won't inflict that on you. I invoked the Kurt Vonnegut invented word of Grenfalloon, a proud and meaningless association of human beings, which is exactly what independents are. They have nothing in common with each other. They would not form a political party. They're not coherent. And most of them are one thing or the other, and they just don't want to admit it. But I want to read you a couple of paragraphs from John Avlon from 11 years ago.
Unbelievable.
And this is the two timely new books. Two timely new books, Mickey Edwards, The Parties versus the People, How to Turn Republicans. Yep. How to Turn Republicans and Democrats into Americans. And I know, it's so fucking perfect. And
Barf.
Jacqueline Sallett's Independence Rising offer valuable insights into the impulses that have inspired a record number of Americans to reject the two parties and demand something different. The two authors come to some of the same conclusions from very different perspectives. Edwards is a former Republican congressman from Oklahoma, a member of party leadership during the Reagan era, and now vice president of the, wait for it, Aspen Institute. Of course he is. Sallett is a New York City-based campaign strategist, third-party founder, and political activist who was raised part of the professional left and now runs independentvoting.org. Their two books reflect very different personal experiences in politics, but they identify some of the same problems and solutions. And now we come to the best part of it. Some of these proposals dovetail with suggestions made in, quote, Making Congress Work, a plan developed by No Labels, a group Edwards and I helped co-found with fellow Daily Beast journalist Mark McKinnon and Nancy Jacobson. That's from 2012. And if you think you're tired of reading this shit, imagine how tired we are repeating. How the fuck is this myth still alive? How do these people still have jobs? And the answer is because there's a shit ton of money. Because nobody wants to point to the Republican Party and say, they are the problem, get rid of them and the problems go away. And by the way, the problem with the Republican Party is about 80% the problem of the same fucking media who won't talk about the problem going back at least 30 years.
Because money. Because money.
So we have to keep these assholes employed and keep them saying this shit because God forbid someone think we're liberal and then somebody comes and bombs our house, which, is an actual fear.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of independent voters and both sides do it was dead and a punchline 10 years ago. And the fact they're still doing it and still being respected for it is not mind-boggling, but it is exhausting. So that's our quiz for today. And you did very well. Just dialing in on Brooks was, I got to say.
Finally, when I finally read it and thought, who is putting together this quiz? And who would he put last? Of course you would put David Brooks last.
What sort of monster would put David Brooks in a quiz like this?
Arrest David Brooks today.
Brilliant.
All right. In addition to everyone hearing my voice when they hear the word independent with, I'm an independent. A person on Twitter noted to me that they hear my voice when they think of, I'm not perfect, I'm just forgiven. And I did a Photoshop this week of Ali Alexander saying, I'm not perfect, I'm just forgiven. Because Ali Alexander has been found to be texting underage boys some very inappropriate messages, requesting jack-off photos from people under 18. Who are the groomers again?
Yeah. You and me, Blue Gal. Apparently you and me.
Yeah, I'm not perfect, I'm just forgiven. And I was doing some web searching today. Someone else had a picture of Roger Stone with a woman, and they wanted to find out who the woman was, and I couldn't figure it out. But the word God was on the wall behind them. And so that made me think, that he was in some sort of church thing. So I looked up Roger Stone Church. Roger Stone is now on a Crystal Cathedral tour.
Oh, really?
Of evangelical churches. And I'm not making this up, talking about going from Saul to Paul.
Yeah. Well,
I just can't. I mean, I'm not surprised. He has the nose for where to find the chumps.
He does.
Well,
let me ask you, Blue Gal, is he the stone the builders rejected?
See?
I can do Bible stuff.
We can do Bible all day long. But yeah, he's decided that the thing to do is to go from church to church to church and talk about how he has found Jesus.
It's great. Where was Jesus all this time? People keep finding him. Is he like Waldo? Does he wear is he disappeared in the crowd?
There he is.
Where's Jesus? I found Jesus.
I found him in my heart. I found him. Yeah, well, and I don't criticize anyone who actually finds solace in religion. I do.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the point. The point is, Roger Stone, if he's really feeling solace in Jesus Christ, he's got a lot of atonement to do.
Well, no, atonement is so, I don't know, 1970.
I see.
We don't atone anymore. We just pretend the past never happened, and we do the.
You say 1970s. That's when they learned not to atone.
Exactly.
That's when they learned to do up with people and elect Reagan.
Right. That's when
after Nixon. That was not atonement.
The moral majority showed up and said, You know what? We're morally superior to you, and we don't have to apologize for a goddamn thing.
Right. Even though we voted for Nixon twice. Yeah. Right. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was forced to shut up and sit down or leave the committee. I think she just left. She accused the Homeland Security Chief, Mr. Mayorkas, of lying. You're a liar. You're a liar.
You're a liar. You're lying.
Yeah. And House Democrats on her committee knew the rules, particularly Dan Goldman of New York. He is a treasure.
He really is.
And I realize that there were, at the time of his election in the primary, people who felt that he wasn't liberal enough for this liberal district that he represents. But he has been a treasure to have on these committees because he knows the rules.
Yeah.
And he pointed out, yes, Marge, there is no such thing as a point of personal inquiry.
I'm having a bad Congress thingy. Can I have
this bad Congress thingy that I get to talk all I want and call anybody names I want to.
Yeah.
And he knew the rules that when someone's words are taken down, and he asked the chair, he went through channels, he went through Robert's Rules of Order, he addressed the chair. He did not turn to Marjorie Taylor Greene and call her a C word. He went through the chair of his committee with respect, point of order, using the correct request to the chair of his committee, that the rules are that if someone's words are taken down and impugning someone's character was what Marjorie Taylor Greene was guilty of, that congressperson can no longer speak on that issue.
Right.
That's the punishment. You're silenced.
That's the rule.
And he clarified that with this Congressman Greene. It's not Marjorie Taylor Greene, Green, a man from somewhere else who really didn't want to be, he didn't want to be a hero for anybody at that moment.
No, I'd rather not.
And had a parliamentarian behind him, a staff member behind him, looking at the rules, checking out the rules, and got her silenced.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone tried to bring up that, by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in addition to calling Mr. Mayorkas a liar, also brought up Eric Swalwell and the Chinese spy and all those lies.
Right.
Talk about impugning character.
Yeah.
But they didn't go after her for that, I think because they don't want any more death threats against Eric Swalwell.
Yeah.
And but Eric Swalwell held up unadulterated, unedited campaign advertising from Marjorie Taylor Greene, in which she sells for a donation T-shirts and hats that say defund the FBI.
Right.
And some Republican tried to claim that was impugning her character.
Yeah. It's very Gingrichi, isn't it? How dare you quote I said? What literally? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that did not work out well for them either. But yeah, I just think these Democrats who know what they're doing in these committees are preventing the Benghazi bullshit from happening.
Right. They're doing it by reading the fucking manual, knowing how things work. These aren't deep, weird Senate rules that were passed in 1798 or 1823 that only 4 people in the Senate know about.
No,
these are basic Robert's Rules of
Order. Exactly.
This is how you run every committee. I sit on 2 committees. They're run like this.
Yep. And you don't get to scream, "Arrest Marjorie Taylor today, Taylor Greene today."
No. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks, because no one has, shut her up and told her to sit down in any other way.
Yeah.
She's a loudmouth, bigoted lunatic, and she's the biggest fundraiser in the GOP because Republicans are garbage people, and they like hearing this stuff, and they like to see her standing up on a table, throwing shit around the room, which is why they stormed the Capitol.
The clip of her saying that Mayorkas is a liar made the rounds in right-wing media.
I'm sure she made
without anything about her shutting down her speech. No,
Well, and that's why. Let's circle back to the theme of this particular episode again. Why there'll be no bunker busters to crack open the Republican Party, and there's no fever to break. This is not a passing thing.
This is who they are.
Who they are, and this is who a lot of them have always been. And that is the fundamental lie that Republicans who now pretend to be our allies, proclaim themselves to be part of our party, and who keep telling us how to run things, when they lost their whole party, keep insisting that we need to do things this way. And that brings me to Sarah Longwell of the Loop Project, who argued in print this week that we should consider 2016 to be the, quote, year zero of the Republican Party. That Republicans, the base, now rejects all the shit they said they liked before 2016. And I have a very strong objection to that, because I've lived through the last 2 or 3 or 4 times the Republican Party declared a year zero, either explicitly or implicitly. The last year zero was, right after Barack Obama was elected. When a whole bunch of assholes who I know and who are Republicans and been Republican their whole life put on funny hats and bought themselves Gadsden flags and called themselves Tea Partiers and pretended they hadn't said and did all the shit they said and did during the Bush administration. And the previous year zero was when George Bush got elected.
Mm-hmm.
And these same assholes pretended they never impeached Bill Clinton over bullshit. They never called him not my president. They never talked about deficits being the most important thing in the world. This is just the periodic reset of the memory aperture of the Republican Party. These are people who've always been awful garbage people. And every few years, it becomes intolerable to people like Sarah Longwell. So then we have to pretend that, let's just, for the sake of discussion, let's ignore what happened in the past and move forward. I say, you know what? Let's ignore forward and talk about the past a lot. Let's talk about how we got to this place a lot. Because the one subject, if you want to hear all about how awful Donald Trump is, dial into any Never Trump podcast, any of the Never Trumpers who colonized MSNBC. You can hear all the terrible, awful, horrible shit Donald Trump does. The conversation you will never hear any of them have, under any circumstances, with a bazooka to their heads, is how they got to be this way. Mm-hmm. The diagnostic part of the problem. How the hell did these people come to be this crazy? And then there's no one around to say, Charlie Sykes, you were on radio, pretty big player in Wisconsin for like 30 years, right? Feeding red meat to these. Did you notice this at all? Did it occur to you at all that this was a bad thing, that you were creating a monster that you'd never be able to control? And by the way, all the people who told you that was what you were doing, did you ever consider maybe they were right? Did you ever consider, now that 10 years have passed, that you maybe should apologize to those people? Maybe those people should be the people who are setting the agenda and not you? But we're not going to have that discussion, because those people will not allow anywhere outside of our little blogs and podcasts any discussion of the diagnostic portion of curing a disease, which is, how did it come to be this way? How did it get so bad? Who were the accelerators? And why did it end up looking this way? And the only people who will answer those questions honestly are the very people who you'll never see on camera at MSNBC or behind a microphone at any of your most popular podcasts.
Well, and when I saw this article by Sarah Longwell, I replied to her. Mm-hmm. And I went back to C-SPAN and looked at some of Charlie Sykes's Because every once in a while they would have radio day on C-SPAN, when Congress was out. And they did several hours of Charlie Sykes on the radio.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? One of the big things he was talking about, Trip Class?
Back in 2012?
I don't know when it was exactly, but it was the time when the Scott Walker recall was going on.
Uh-huh.
And Charlie Sykes was going on and on and on and on about voter fraud.
Democratic voter fraud.
Democratic voter fraud in the cities.
Right.
And how we can't trust these cities to count votes correctly, and that the people are switching votes. The people in these urban centers are probably switching votes. And we should be really, really, really concerned about that.
Yeah.
Because 1% can make the difference.
I read that article.
Yeah.
And it has all the elements. It has Reince Priebus in it.
Yep.
It has Scott Walker in it.
Yep.
And it talks about the write-up this shit all got in the Weekly Standard. Bill Kristol's Weekly Standard. Bulwark founder Bill Kristol's Weekly Standard.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to say. I'm gonna take a deep breath.
The plan was, I'm convinced, absolutely, 2016, the plan was it was going to be Jeb and his running mate was going to be Scott Walker.
Right. That was the plan.
Yeah.
And when Trump turned out to be the candidate, it was going to be, and I know we said this before, it was, well, since Hillary's going to win, we can vote for, Evan McMullin. Mm-hmm. We can vote for David French. We can write in Ronald Reagan or Edmund Burke because she's going to win. And then we can have 4 very profitable years kicking the shit out of President Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can say, we told you so. We told you Republicans. We told you. And then all of us, Bill Kristol and Charlie Sykes and Tim Miller and all the rest of us can sweep back into power as the we told you so.
As we laugh all the way to the bank, making money off of anti-Hillary rhetoric for 4 years or 8 years.
These people went straight from calling liberals assholes and morons and fools to being MSNBC contributors, like almost overnight. And I would like to hear from anyone at MSNBC, how the hell that happened. How the hell you pick these people? And I know. And there would be all of these things. The Lincoln Project and the Bulwark and all the rest of them would not exist if they didn't have years of constant daily free publicity on cable news from liberals. And it's not that I resent that, although I deeply, deeply resent it. It's that it's such a suicidally stupid thing to do, to hand the agenda when you have the moral high ground and you have the correct policies, to hand the speaking conch over to people who think you're an asshole and still think you're an asshole and who spent 30 years making money calling you an asshole. It was just unforgivably dumb. But moving on. There are a plethora of House Republicans who belong on the backbench, but right now they're on the front bench. Uh-huh. And it's James Comer and Ronnie Jackson and this new one. Boy, he's a winner. Republican Congressman Nick Langworthy of New York's 23rd, who was on Mornings with Maria today. Oh.
And all of them are saying the same thing, which is, if Hunter Biden did stuff, and we believe he did, it would be bad. And this guy Langworthy was, and I realize your brain turns off Mornings with Maria automatically.
Yeah.
But this was a funny, you also have to tune in order to ridicule, because ridicule is one of the weapons we have that often works.
Well, except ridiculing them doesn't work.
No, I'm not talking about working for them. It works for us and the middle, and we're trying to influence the middle.
Right.
Representative Langworthy said, there's so much smoke around Hunter Biden that there has to be a raging inferno.
If I may cast your mind back, that's called the Cokie rule, the Cokie law.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People are talking. It's in the air. We have to report it because people are talking. Yeah. You and your weirdo friends at the hairdresser in the Beltway are talking about it. Therefore, it's news.
Yep.
And the buzz about it is the news. So we're going to make that into a story. And then we're going to talk about the buzz that is the story now, because there's a lot of people talking about it. And then you know what? After we talk about it incessantly, more people are talking about it. My
gosh, it's a story. It's newsworthy. Yeah. Just like election fraud in the 2020 election. Everybody's talking about it. Yeah. But I learned something today that I did not know about Ivanka Trump, because that's the person that they've erased.
Right.
Ivanka Trump at the G7. Remember that? She went as daddy's companion to the G7 and his babysitter. I knew all about, Ivanka having dozens and dozens of Chinese trademarks that she now owns that are worth a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize, and Citizens for Ethics had us a tweet about this, Ivanka Trump also has business trademarks in all the countries of the G7, all of them. And, we're not talking about smoke there, are we? Blowing smoke up Maria Bartiromo's butt is more like it.
So you're saying Ivanka's going to be fine. We shouldn't worry about Ivanka. She's going to be fine.
She's going to be fine.
Yeah. You know what we should do? We should round up some news.
Oh, let's round up some news.
Top of the news, I don't know if you heard, but Fox reached a last-second settlement with Dominion Voting Systems for $787.5 million. That's a lot of dollars.
That's a lot of dollars.
Now, what's the real lesson we learned? Fox will never again defame a multinational corporation.
Kevin McCarthy proposed a 1-year debt ceiling increase paired with cuts to the budget and new work requirements to receive federal benefits. I wonder if his grandmother is going to have to go back to work.
I hope so.
For Medicaid and food stamps, defaulting on our debt is not an option, McCarthy said. Well, that's good to hear. But no strings attached debt limit increase will not pass.
Yeah, because you made a lot of promises to a lot of crazy people who can destroy your career with a snap of their fingers. Quoting President Joe Biden, MAGA Republicans are threatening to default on the national debt unless I agree to all these wacko notions they have. Way to go, Joe. Yeah, more like that.
Corn Pop taught me that word.
Yeah.
Michael Smerconish.
Yeah,
he's an independent.
I haven't heard from him in a long time, so I thought I'd put this one in.
But he was out today quoting law professor Jane Kirtley.
Yeah, whoever that is.
And she said, the title of the article was, Will Dominion Lawsuit Hurt Other Journalism? And here's her quote, pushed by Michael Smerconish of CNN. Quote, many news organizations would not withstand the degree of scrutiny that Fox will be subjected to. I don't like the idea that we're having effectively truth tribunals here that are declaring whether the press is telling the truth or not.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have truth tribunals to determine whether a media outlet is lying.
Yeah. Knowingly, maliciously lying.
Knowingly, maliciously, and with malice lying.
And Smerconish, the lie is in the headline, which is, will it hurt other journalism? Because Fox is journalism? No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's the propaganda arm of the Republican Party has been so for 30 years. This is from Chris Christie, quote, you have someone who's had an affair with a porn star, paid her off $130,000 to cover it up, to keep that information from the American people. That's not the character of somebody who I think should be president of the United States. Now, we should know, for the record, that everything Chris Christie says about Trump was publicly known when Trump ran for re-election in 2020. Yet Chris Christie supported Trump in 2020. He campaigned hard for him in 2020. He prepped Trump for the debates, where, in fact, he contracted COVID from Trump.
In the pre-dawn hours of April 18th, Republicans in the Iowa Senate passed a bill allowing 14-year-olds to work night shifts, 15-year-olds to work assembly lines, and 16-year-olds to serve alcohol. The bill passed 32-17.
Yeah, I think one or two Republicans voted against it, but it was pretty much a party line vote, and that's what happens when you put Republicans in power. That's why they're anti-choice, Blue Gal. Because you need a lot of babies to grow up to be 12-year-old bartenders in their vision of America, of the America the Beautiful. Throughout Friday and throughout the weekend, multiple National Weather Service accounts announced that Twitter had removed their API access, which would disrupt crucial, potentially life-saving automated emergency updates. The move came as Twitter prepares to transition its currently free API service to a paid subscription model starting at an exorbitant $42,000 per month for enterprise access. Quote, Twitter informed the National Weather Service there are no plans for exemptions. National Weather Service Director of Public Affairs Susan Buchanan told Mashable in a statement.
Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans won't allow Democrats to temporarily replace Dianne Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee. Feinstein was hospitalized for shingles in March and has been recovering at home. Feinstein's absence has stalled confirmations of some of the Biden administration's judicial nominees. She has not provided a return date. Chuck Schumer said he planned to ask for unanimous consent from the Senate to appoint a temporary substitute, But McConnell called the effort to substitute Feinstein on the panel an extremely unusual request with no known precedent. Gee, he should care about precedent when it comes to appointing justices? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be clear, McConnell said. Senate Republicans will not take part in sidelining a temporarily absent colleague off a committee just so Democrats can force through their very worst nominees. And he wasn't struck by lightning.
No, yet.
It would take the support of at least 10 Republicans to allow Democrats to make the temporary change on the committee.
So let's turn to the most reasonable Republican in the universe and never Trump superhero, Mitt Romney. What does he have to say on the subject? On the Feinstein committee swap, he says they'd like Republicans to help them speed the appointment of more liberal justices. Yes, when hell freezes over, which I think is like the most close to being sweary that Mitt Romney
He said a swear right there.
He said a swear, yeah.
Speaking of justices who don't belong there, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas reported rental income totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 2 decades from a firm that has not existed since 2006. Nevertheless, Thomas continued to disclose between $50,000 and $100,000 in income from the old firm annually on his financial disclosures.
He's such a crook.
That's something that the Professional Left podcast is never able to do. Declared $100,000 in income.
I woke you up last night and said, honey, I forgot that $100,000 we got from that firm that doesn't exist anymore. What do we do about that? And you told me to go back to sleep because I was having a nightmare.
You're having a bad dream, Drift Glass.
House Republicans passed bill to ban transgender women and girls from school sports teams. The legislation, titled the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, and sponsored by Representative Greg Steube of Florida, passed in a party line vote 219 to 203. It is the first standalone bill to restrict the rights of transgender people considered in the House. The Biden administration announced on Monday the president would veto the bill if it landed on his desk, arguing it discriminates against children, which it does.
Fox News has parted ways with firebrand political commentator Dan Bongino.
There are so many ways to describe Dan Bongino. Firebrand would not be my choice, but I did pull it from a headline.
The network said in a carefully crafted statement on Tuesday, we thank Dan for his contributions and wish him success in his future endeavors.
Yeah, I've had that written about me, and it doesn't mean what you think it means. Quoting Lisa Murkowski, Republican senator from Alaska, quote, I think we are moving dangerously close to a place where the public has lost faith and trust in the credibility of our governing institutions. They don't trust the court. I don't think what's going on with Justice Thomas is helping anything. Yeah, me neither. Murkowski spoke on Tuesday with Senator Angus King, the independent of Maine, about a proposal he is circulating among colleagues to require Supreme Court to adopt a judicial code of conduct. She said she supported the approach outlined in the proposal to require justices, not members of Congress, to set ethics rules for the Supreme Court. Quote, I see no reason not to be able to support this other than there are Republicans worried that we don't want to embarrass the conservative members of the court. We need to be worried about the credibility of the court right now. If I were Chief Justice John Roberts, I would have been working on this the minute the news broke, she said. Hell yeah, but Roberts lost control of this court 10 years ago.
Yeah. Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is Leia. And no, she isn't a princess, but sometimes she thinks she is. And Leia's owner writes, of course, I give permission for you to read my letter on the air. And as my brother was a letter carrier for almost 30 years. Yay. I love to shout out, go Postal Unions. My father was a high school math teacher, and my mother was an RN nurse in the flyover country of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. They were also both union members. Can't get much more middle class than that. I love being a Patreon supporter of the podcast and always say this one is for pro-left when I pass up Starbucks a couple times a month. Maybe one day I'll be able to sit for coffee at the cafe in Springfield, or if you ever make it to Central Florida, why would you want to come here? I have no clue. Thanks for being a wonderful voice for the left. Well, we do have family in Gainesville.
We do.
We do. So it's not a question of burning Florida to the ground in my book. It's get those Nazis out of there. Of course, Leia Eats Freshly Poured Cat Food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store dreck, your cats will sit on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh my lord, it's freshly poured. And you can visit Leia at our Facebook page or website, and you can send your internet kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email. Or U.S. Postal Service, go Postal Unions. Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our full-time job. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details on how you can support the show. Our PayPal, postal address information, all of it is there at proleftpod.com. Please share our show on social media, and if you love this podcast, get someone else to listen to. And thank you for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties would like a moment of silence as we contemplate the death of Mike Pompeo's political career.
He's really not dead. As long as we remember it.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2023 DGBG Productions.